Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny, blue skies, May 17th, 2024. I'm back here at the park, and no squirrels. Oh, well. Uh, let's get into it, shall we? So, this is like I said, it's a beautiful day, May 17th. We have some pretty interesting birthdays. On this day in 1749, an English surgeon by the name of Edward Jenner was born. Not, I didn't have any other details on him, so I'm not sure why he was famous or whatever. But in 1866, Eric Satie, Satie, is a French composer, and apparently, there was a little blurb on him. It's his birthday today. He was born today in 1866. Apparently, his style of composing music really heavily influenced music in the 20th century. So that's pretty interesting there. 20 years later, in 1886, Alfonso the 13th, King of Spain, would be born. And in 1936, this is pretty cool. I didn't realize that Dennis Hopper was like one day younger than my stepdad. Dennis Hopper is an American actor. He's been in, quite a bit of stuff. He was in Easy Rider with Peter Fonda. Or not, yeah, Peter Fonda, which was Henry Fonda's son. He was in Easy Rider. He was in the first Speed movie. He was the bad guy in that movie. He's done a lot of stuff. He was. I'm wanting to say he did something else, but I mean he's done quite a bit. In 1956, so 20 years later, Sugar Ray Leonard was born, and if you are a boxing fan, then you know who Sugar Ray Leonard is. I definitely remember him from the early '80s. He was a very popular boxer during the early '80s. He kind of became a household name. But yeah, in 1971, Maxima, she is the queen consort to the Netherlands. She was born on this day in 1971. So that's it for the birthdays. On this day in 1792, 24 businessmen met on what is now known as Wall Street. And they got together, they had a meeting, and they basically laid down the foundation for the New York Stock Exchange. So you could say that the New York Stock Exchange, its birthday is today. They laid down the founding blueprints of how they were going to run the stock exchange. So that's today. In 1875, the very first Kentucky Derby was run in Louisville. Aristides, I think that's how you pronounce it. That was the horse that won that race. But it's been a long-standing tradition now for 149 years that the Kentucky Derby is running. And now it kind of makes sense to me as to why the Kentucky Derby is usually around mid-May. Because the very first Derby was on May 17th, 1875. So I assume that they probably tried to run, because it's usually on a Saturday. I mean, I know this. I used to work at a racetrack. I used to work security at Portland Meadows Racetrack in Portland, Oregon. And we always had a big gala event for the Derby because we would televise it. We had a lot of TVs and such, and it was a televised thing. And it would, just bring out the masses. I mean, people would dress up and they would come to our horse track just to watch, the Kentucky Derby. And really, it was only one main race or a couple, 2-3 races or something like that. But there was there it was one race and like y'all came out for this, but it was always a day event. So, but yeah, that was in 1875. On this day, it was the very first day of the Kentucky Derby. In 1900, L. Frank Baum would have his book published. It was called The Wonderful World, or excuse me, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Now, 39 years later, that book would be converted into a movie, and that movie was my sister Malia's favorite movie of all time. Um, Funny story about that is that the one Christmas I had debated what to get my sister for Christmas, and I was at this kiosk and I saw all these Beanie Babies. She needed to have a Beanie Baby invention. I swear, she loved Beanie Babies. She had a huge collection of them, and I kept going back and forth, and there were some Beanie Babies that I thought she'd like, and then I saw this Wizard of Oz collection, and I ended back then it was like $70. And it was quite a bit of money on for what I was making at the time, because I worked retail, and it was early 90s, mid 90s, and it was, I didn't make much money, but $70 is what I spent, and it was the whole collection. It was like there was like the whole series of Wizard of Oz Beanie Babies, and I got it for her, and I remember she burst into tears crying, and I felt bad, and I was like, well, damn, sis, if it's really that bad, I'll get you something else. Please don't cry. And my brother-in-law, like, you have no clue what you did. And I'm like, no, I don't. What would I do? And then when she kind of composed herself, she's like, Billy, you know what Star Wars is to you? I'm like, well, yeah, of course I do. She's like, well, that's Wizard of Oz to me. And I was like, oh, so I did good. And my brother was like, yeah, you did so good. You're never going to be able to top this one ever. And I never did. But Wizard of Oz was her favorite movie, and that came out in 1939. I don't know what day it was, but that was just a note that, it was on this day in 1900 that the book was released, but in 1939 the movie adaptation was released, and it was my sister's favorite. It was her favorite movie of all time. She's no longer with us either, so that's why I kind of get a little choked up when I talk about her. That was my stepdad's youngest daughter, so losing her was like losing my dad all over again. It sucked. So, but on this day in 1939, something did happen, and this kind of caught me off guard, because I didn't think that we had television until the later 40s. But apparently, historically speaking, it says it right here, on this day in 1939, the very first televised sporting event in the United States aired on NBC. And it was a college baseball game between Princeton and Columbia University. I want to call shenanigans on that, because I didn't think that we had working TVs. I didn't, I know that Germany had the technology. They had the technology. They were having televised like news stuff as early as, I'm wanting to say, like 1936, 1937. So, I mean, like, the technology was there, but I didn't think we had it here. But obviously I'm mistaken. On this day in 1996, President Clinton had signed Megan's Law into effect. And basically what that was is that it was a national law that imposed upon law enforcement to notify schools, daycare facilities, any kind of a facility that takes care of kids or educates kids, and it required them to be notified of sex offenders in the area, which is a good thing. Why it took this long, why it's called Megan's Law, well, that means that, this is a law that is reactionary to something that had happened. Because that's usually how we do it here in the United States. We have a catastrophic event, and then we pass a law to correct it. It's like at stores, the Code Atoms, they came about as a result of the Adam Walsh abduction and killing in, I believe that was 1981. I was a kid when that happened. I remember the huge commotion about it. My stepdad being a policeman, that it was huge. When I was in Cub Scouts, one of my requirements for when I was a bear scout, I had my bear book, is that they had revised their bear manual to reflect having fingerprints taken. And law enforcement had suggested that it was a good idea to have your children fingerprinted so that in the event that they go missing, then you would have a copy of their fingerprints so that law enforcement, if they track down where they suspect the child might have been, they could dust for fingerprints and see if they had been there. Well, I remember local police officer Gary Harris at the time. He did my fingerprints for my manual there, my bear for bear scout, my bear cub badge there. And I remember my dad looking at it. It's like, it's not his fault. The manuals, it was like yay big by yay big, so like it wasn't a really good thing. So Dad actually had us come out to his office there in Aurora, where he was the chief of police, and he did a full workup for us, for my mom. And he had I'm rabbit trailing here, but whatever. He had a holding cell, and I asked my dad if that was a real holding cell. He says, "Why don't you go step inside, Stinker, and find out?" So I did. He slammed the door, and it locked. It scared the crap out of me. I think that's why I never wanted to go to jails, because it had left that much of an indelible impression upon me. And so I'm screaming. My brother is laughing. My mom's in hysterics. She's like, "Bob, what did you do? Go get him out of there." And he's like kind of snickering. He thought it was funny too, and that was my dad's humor. And then he was like, "Get him out of there." He's like, "I gotta go get the key." So he went into his office and he got the key, and he unlocked the door and let me out. And I was traumatized for a little while, but I was like, and then my brother's like, "My turn," and my mom said no. I joked to my mom to this day that maybe she should have let him have his turn in that jail cell, and maybe he might have wanted to avoid the lengthy rap sheet that he has now. But so going back to Megan's Law, it was a good thing, and it was probably one of the more positive highlights of Clinton's presidency. I mean, it was mired in quite a bit of controversy, and I'm not going to go talk smack about him because it's in the past, but I mean, he wasn't one of my favorite presidents. I used to think that he was probably the worst president in my lifetime, but I have since amended that. The past two Democrat presidents have made that list for me, but that's just me. Last thing on the list is 2004. This day in 2004, the state of Massachusetts is the first in the union to legalize same-sex marriage, to the point where they actually start issuing marriage licenses to gay couples. And that is it. That is your day in history for May 17th. You got to have some history, and you got to have some personal anecdotes about my dad's shenanigans, and and at any rate, it's a beautiful day. It's a blessed day. It's always a blessed day when you get up and breathe. So give God the glory for that. So thanks for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow for May 18th, and we'll see if this beautiful weather trend continues. So it looked like it spit rain last night, but now you wouldn't know it. So it's great. I've got to get going to work now, so I'll talk to y'all soon. Take care, be blessed, and have a great day.